But very, very excited and happy to have with us another guest. He is Zachary Stewart. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the chief critic at theatermania.com. He's also a member of the New York Drama Critics Circle, and he'll be talking with us about score of a musical, which is not the whole songs, it's just the music part of the shows. So, first of all, there you are, and his name is not Paul, even though there you go. Zachary Stewart.
Just changed it.
There you go. Hey, Zachary,
Hey.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Mr. Lefkowitz?
I am doing great. Call me Dave, and by the way, I love your shirt.
I love your set design. Who doesn't?
My beloved set designing wife. Hey, wife, thank you so much.
She did a spectacular job. That must have taken some time.
He sure did.
Minimum budget.
And minimum, yeah, the budget.
Show him what the quiz was.
Off Broadway.
Yeah, and we had our Tony trivia quiz earlier. This is the award.
Oh.
Made in China, so you know it's quality workmanship.
But you won't be able to get it at that price much longer, will you?
I know, right? Yeah, it's going to be $3 now because the tariff is on. But anywho, Zach, you're looking great. What's real quick? How was the season for you overall?
I think this was spectacular. I mean, 14 new musicals, 14 new plays, 7 play revivals, 7 musicals. You know, the obsessive compulsive in me really loves those numbers, how even they are. And it was a lot of great, just a really, even the stuff that I expected to not love exceeded my expectations. You know, in the best musical category, there's a lot of shows that would win that category hands down in a lesser season. So it's really a lot of winners. I think it's the best season we've had coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it is rather astonishing. There were more than 40 shows. And if you think about Broadway was dead 5 years ago. I mean, a million people were actually dead, but Broadway itself is closed, and then it comes back roaring in the way that it has. So one of the reasons that we have, as you said, 14 new musicals, of which 5 have been nominated for Best Score. So let's talk about those, and maybe you can also mention ones that are egregiously overlooked because there's no room. But here are the nominees. Those are Dead Outlaw by Eric Della Pena and David Yazbek, Death Becomes Her from Noel Carey and Julia Mattison, Maybe Happy Ending by Hugh Park and Will Aronson, and then Operation Mincemeat, I will read the names, David Cumming, Felix Hagen, Natasha Hodgson and Zoe Roberts, and last but not least, Real Women Have Curves from Joy Huerta and Benjamin Velez. So, let's go, Zach.
Well, as with so many of these categories, there's 2 clear front runners, and it's Maybe Happy Ending and Dead Outlaw. And as I said, you know, I think Dead Outlaw could be a best musical winner in another season, but I think it'll be edged out by Maybe Happy Ending in that big category. And I think, you know, for me, I think Maybe Happy Ending might actually edge Dead Outlaw out in this category as well. However, as we've seen in previous seasons, sometimes when you don't win the big award, you know, you're given a consolation prize of best score or best book. This happened with Suffs last year. A couple of years ago, it happened with, I'm trying to remember what it was that didn't. So A Strange Loop won, and then the best score went to, Six, which is still running, and A Strange Loop isn't. So, yeah, this could end up being the one win. You know, everybody's saying, yes, Maybe Happy Ending. This sounds like a Tony Award-winning score. It has a very specific, distinctive voice that sounds modern, but it also traffics in jazz pastiche, so it sounds often like old Broadway. I think voters really appreciate that kind of bridge building that seems like there's a continuity between the past and present and the future. And this is a very futuristic musical, of course. It's about robots. However, everybody's telling me that when they have to choose something to listen to this season, it's the Dead Outlaw cast recording that they're playing on repeat. And this has some excellent songs. It sounds like the 20th century. You know, it's this survey of popular American music throughout the time that this, I'm sure you've already talked about the musical, the time that this man's corpse was being abused all across the United States of America. And so it's, you know, it's rock, it's pastiche, it's sometimes shamelessly stolen. The song My Dear Brother, I'm quite convinced, is just Makin' Whoopee, slightly rearranged, which just entered the public domain. So,
Oh,
and it's sung by some kind of fraudulent carnival folk. So it's like telling a story through fraud, about fraud. It's very smart songwriting from David Yazbek and Eric Della Pena. And I wouldn't be sad at all to see this show win that award.
wow. So let me ask you about some of the other nominees. Are you happy about the slate, or would you replace one or two with shows that weren't nominated for score?
No, I think these are the right ones. I think these are. What about you? Is there one that you really feel like was snubbed here?
Well, I have to say I didn't see all the shows this season. I'm not. I've dyed in the wool New Yorker. I was happy to see Real Women Have Curves get some love because I went in there and said, okay, it's going to be, and it was a lot better in a lot of ways than I expected. I thought the lyrics could have been nominated too. I think it was a very smart show, surprisingly smart show that didn't necessarily have to be. It could have just been an audience pleaser. I mean, what did you think of Real Women Have Curves? We haven't really talked about it in the show.
Oh, I think it's delightful, and I think it's kind of sad that it's being edged out in such a busy season. If it wins anything, I think it might be Justina Machado for her supporting performance as the mother Carmen. I think that might be the one win they get if they get anything. It's wonderful. It has these lovely, tuneful songs. It sounds like a Broadway show from about the last 20 years, very heavily influenced by Jason Robert Brown. It's kind of that folksy light rock version, but it has, it works really well in that form. It doesn't seem to be pushing the form, I think. And I think that's what really kind of makes it, pale in comparison to shows like Dead Outlaw and maybe Happy Ending.
Huh. And what about, let's see, Death Becomes Her is up there. Is a funny score? The lyrics there? The music, what do you think?
Oh, I mean, the lyrics are great. There's a lyric, the one that haunts me at the end is when they're doing this kind of dark version of the song For Good from Wicked, and Madeline Ashton turns into her and says, "You've got me and I've got glue." I mean, that's a marriage, right? Being put on a Broadway stage there. And the music, what I really appreciated about being in this show is you can tell Universal put some money into the band. And so you can hear real brass and you can hear real woodwinds. So it's almost like being at an old Cy Coleman musical when you go. And that's the style that they're trafficking in. Again, not really pushing the form, but really embracing this old Broadway sound that we recognize as Broadway and doing a great job with it.
Yeah. Well, what was that? I don't remember when it was. It might have been Boop, it might have been Smash, but I put on like to listen to the cast recording because I haven't seen either of those shows. And immediately I heard what sounded like a full orchestra, but I could tell it was synths. I could tell
Yeah.
that it was gussied up with just electronic sounding. It's not the same.
It's not.
So, Boop and Smash, do they belong in this category or not?
No, I mean, it's terrible to say because it's Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, who are two of the greatest songwriters working on Broadway right now. But that show is kind of a Franken musical. I feel like it's being held together by the magic and will of Susan Stroman, who is one of the greatest show people of my lifetime, and it's fun to watch. It's just not a great musical. And then Boop, Boop is, well, what? We're gonna do the Barbie thing with another piece of IP on a Broadway stage. And for me, I think that's has everything to do with Jerry Mitchell's brilliant choreography again. He might win a Tony for that second act opener where they're in black and white, they're in color, they're in black and white, they're flipping around. It's brilliant. And then, of course, Jasmine Amy Rogers, who's giving an incredible Broadway debut, and I think will probably beat Audra on Sunday with
Wow.
that,
And can I ask, do you
quite
think
like.
Can Don D the musical be far behind? Gasoline Alley? You don't even remember Don D. You're not old enough to remember Don D in the
No.
newspapers, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll be back here next year talking about the Rick Springfield musical. I mean, with a lot of these IP, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to boomer nostalgia because that does sell tickets. Neil Diamond sold tickets for over a year, and that was a crap musical. You know?
I didn't see it, but ouch, ouch. So what? Last question for Zach Stewart, by the way. Your favorite show on or off Broadway of the whole entire season?
Gosh, I don't know if it was my favorite, but it's one I've been thinking about and people have brought up to me successively in the last 2 days. And I thought, this is interesting. There was a show out at St. Anne's Warehouse in Brooklyn called Burnout Paradise. And it was this Australian company called Ponycam. And what they would do is they were on four treadmills and they had to compete different tasks like filling out a grant application, cooking a 3-course meal while running on a treadmill. And then they would see how far they got, and they would have to try to beat their record from the last performance. And if they didn't, they offered everyone in the audience their money back. And so it was like experimental theater, but I'm in this Brooklyn theater and people are standing up and cheering and screaming and going wild. They're serving Gatorade in the audience. That's make experimental theater fun. You turn it into sports. That's what they learned, you know? And so I thought it was an extraordinary New York debut for this Australian company I'd never heard of. And I hope they come back. I've heard rumors maybe at the Astor Place Theater now that Blue Man Group is evacuating.
Wow, that would be ideal. Yeah. And it sounds like the feeling I got the first time I saw Blue Man Group, or the first time I saw what was it, David Shiner and Bill Irwin, or Too Much Light. When I first saw them in Chicago, I was like, this is something else. There's something new happening here. What was that called from the Australian Pony?
It was Burnout Paradise, and the company is Ponycam. Follow them on Instagram. They're going to be something really important.
Well, someone really important to us and someone that you guys should follow is Zachary Stewart. He is the chief critic at theatermania.com. So by all means, read his reviews there. Zachary, wishing you a happy end to this Broadway season and many, many more seasons to come. Thank you so much for being with us in the neighborhood.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. All right, Zachary Stewart on the Dave's Gone By show this Saturday morning.